There are some jewelry findings that we just look at in a catalog or in a store and zoom right past. Today I have for you an interesting jewelry finding. They're called bead cages, and you'll be surprised at all the different things you can do with them. Hey there, creative people, Sandy here. Welcome to another Friday Findings video at keepsakecrafts.net. So the nice folks at BB Craft sent me these 3 sets of bead cages. First of all, once again, I love the containers. I'm looking forward to using the bead cages and just having cute little containers with screw-on lids. They sent me sets in 3 different sizes. These are 9mm. Wait a minute. There's a problem with these. When I open them, I said, what? Okay, here we are. I'll tell you about the problem in a moment. These are 9mm with 3mm holes on each end. And then this set is 10 to 15mm, so there's different sizes in here, with a 4mm hole on each end. And these are big ones, 34 by 19mm, with a 4.5mm hole on each end. And these big ones have a loop on one end, which is nice. Now, according to the website, I'm not sure. I thought they were all stainless steel. These 2, it says they're iron. I think, I could be wrong, but I think they're all hardened stainless steel. That's the one advantage of buying these rather than making your own. One of the very first things I learned how to do in wire that I found so intriguing was learning to make a double spiral that I could pull apart and wrap around a bead. It was like one of my very first beading projects. I just thought it was cool. Alright, now here's one thing about the way these are packaged. I opened this up and I looked at it and said, huh? Are they supposed to be double? No, they're not. And yet look at, so many of these have nestled inside each other in shipping, I'm assuming. I don't think anybody would have done that on purpose, would they? So what you have to do is like grab them with a pair of pliers, and you have to keep grabbing and letting go, and twist them apart. Let me find maybe one that isn't quite so... So that was kind of a pain. There they go, see? So I had to do that for quite a few, especially these ones, I think, because these are different sizes. So the smaller ones just very conveniently, or inconveniently, nestled inside the big ones. So you just keep twisting, twisting, twisting. If you can get it started, there. So that's, they're not supposed to be double. They're supposed to be single. And some of that, a little bit of that happened with these smaller ones, but not so much. So, oh, I don't know if there's a way to package them. I suppose it would take up more room to string them or something to keep that from happening. That's a little bit of a pain. But anyways, we'll go on to how do you use these? Well, first of all, let me show you how I think you shouldn't use them. Here are a few examples I made of finding a bead that was pretty much the same size as the cage and putting it in there. And I've got the bead that I used in front of each one. Looking at these, you can hardly tell what's in there. Even the bright red bead hardly shows up inside the cage, just a little bit of it. So I wouldn't recommend just finding a bead that's the same size as the cage. Unless you're using inexpensive beads that you just want for the color and you want more of the silver to show, in which case this might be perfect. But if you're trying to accent your bead, this just hides it. Instead, I suggest you find a bead that really challenges your cap, so to speak, that is bigger than it. And suddenly, now that's interesting. You can see the bead. So the way these work is they are hardened. They're springy. You can see that. So it will spring back. So you just need to open it up. And I usually use the thumb of one hand and then kind of shove that bead in there. There we go. And you might take a little bit of fiddling and adjusting. And you want to get the holes, of course, lined up. So I found an awl is really helpful. You can kind of reach in there. Find the hole there, and then get your... And that's pretty cool. Now, of course, this one is a lot bigger than the cage, but you could go a little bit smaller than, and you know, just a little bit bigger than the cage. The point is that the closer the bead is in size to the cage, the less of it is going to end up showing, like in this example and in this. But it's still a pretty cool accent. And the same goes for the smaller ones. I really like the way this one looks. I think because of the ridges on the bead, it kind of captures those spirals, and I think that one is pretty cool and a great accent for the bead. And here's another one that's just a little bit bigger. Not particularly expensive beads. Again, if I had a gorgeous bead that I wanted to show off, I don't think I would put it in a bead cage. So these are all beads that are pretty similar in shape to the bead cages that we're using, but you don't have to do it that way. You can add chips or chunks. So this is a chunk that is kind of cool, and it's interesting when it turns, you see, you know, that negative space, and when it's turned this way, it's filled. You don't have to just use round beads or ones that will fill the whole space. Here's the big one over here, and I actually filled that with several chunks. I just stuffed them in there. Now I can do that with this one because it's already got a loop on it. I can just dangle it from here. I don't have to worry about an eye pin or a head pin going through the whole thing. So it depends on how you're planning to use it. Now I could probably stuff another chunk in there. Let's see. This was kind of fun. Like how many? Like how many people can fit in a phone booth? How many chunks can I stuff in there? At some point, it starts to not look so great. It starts to kind of look just, well, crowded and overstuffed. So I'll leave that up to your design sense, how much to play with that. But for example, I thought this was a really pretty way of showing off a turquoise nugget. The fact that as it turns, you see different profiles, I think really emphasizes the different shape of the nugget. So that was kind of fun, and it could definitely accommodate something bigger if you wanted to. The bigger the bead, the more of it is going to show in proportion to the cage. But in fact, you don't even have to be close in size. Look at this. Here, oh, wait a minute. Ha! That's kind of fun. It's also a danger. I just filled this 34 by 19 millimeter with a whole bunch of little 6 millimeter beads. As long as they're big enough to not come through the largest opening in your spiral. I love all the movement that you get doing that. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that if you want to string this, you don't want to crowd it so much that you can't fit a head pin or an eye pin. In this case, it's fine. But another thing I could do, oh well, thank you. That bead just popped on there. I don't know if you can see it on camera. You can actually just put those in there and string some in the center, and depending on how much room you have, well, that's kind of fun. So there's one strung in the center, which is sort of keeping those from bouncing around so much. So you'll have to play and experiment with just how much movement you want. In a case like this, you probably do want to put, let me pop one of these out. There we go. Something down here, like probably a head pin rather than an eye pin, if this is the bottom of your piece. Have a bead down here and have a loop up here that will keep this from doing this, because otherwise you will lose your pieces, so you don't want that to happen. Another thing, I thought that this would be a great way to showcase something that perhaps you got at a special time. Maybe pebbles that you picked up on a special beach or during a trip. You could put them all in one of these bead cages. Again, make sure to secure it so you don't lose your things. And then there they are, just kind of tumbling about. Another thing you can put in the cages are chips. In this I have a bunch of little itty bitty red chips, and I'm not really thrilled with this look. I think I prefer to have some movement if I'm going to bother putting chips in one of these, but it's up to you. And here are, again, the two different ways of doing it. On this one, I have the beads strung inside. It gives you a really different kind of profile. On this one, I just have the eye pin in there, and I just have the beads kind of stuffed in there. If you want to do chips, but you're afraid of losing them, if you have drilled chips, I have this lovely strand. I just came across this. I'm like, where did I get this and why haven't I used it? These are so pretty. These garnet chips. You can actually leave them on a string. So I'll talk about that one in a minute. Let me find a different one. You could leave them on a string. See how many you can fit in, or you want to fit in your cage. So maybe a little bit more than that. And then I'll just hold on to that there. Pull them out. String just these on their own strand of string. Tie it nice and secure. Then you can stuff the whole strand of chips in there. Nobody will ever be able to tell that it's a strand, but you'll have them all in there without worrying about them falling out the spaces. Here's a pretty way of using these. Just put a big crystal in there, something that's actually deliberately a lot smaller than the cage. So if you want these to be strung, what you'll have to do is put your bead in and then put your eye pin through the hole. And that kind of plays up the difference. I mean, you could absolutely just have something really small in there. You know, far smaller than in the cage. And that's kind of fun and different. I'd probably try to get 3 on, I think, if I could. But you get the idea. Do keep in mind that just like the slinkies you played with as a child, you stretch these too far, they are going to stay stretched out of shape. You can stretch them to a certain point and they'll spring back. But you can tell this one, I think I tried to stuff this bead in. Yep. It's another good solution for, this is a really cool lampwork bead, but it was an early one that I made, and the ends are pretty wonky. So this kind of hides all that, and you just see the beautiful etched blue shape. Here's another one. It's in need of an eye pin going through the bead. This is an oval shaped bead. Like that. And here's just a fun assortment of beads. They don't all have to be the same ones. I've just got all of these little pearls and some crystals and even some pretty small ones. Yeah, I don't think that's going to come out. You might want to test it. But pop in some crystals and some pearls in different sizes, so you can have all different colors. And so it's got a lot of interest when you look at it. There's all kinds of things to see. Other suggestions that I saw on their website were to use these to make aromatherapy jewelry. You could fill it with lava beads that have essential oils on them, and you wouldn't have to worry about the essential oils getting on your clothing because it would be protected in the cages. Same thing with wool balls, like felted wool balls. You could do the same thing. I'm especially partial to the idea of filling them with something special and making a memento for yourself or somebody else. I hope this video has given you some ideas and inspiration for different ways to use these rather cool findings. Thanks again to BB Craft for sending these along. I will have links to all these products at my blog post, which you can find by clicking up here or down in the description box. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. And if you want to get more of my videos every month, then I even publish on my channel. My patrons get up to 2 bonus tutorials every month. So you can check that out as well. Happy creating. Bye-bye.